I've been involved in two specific acquisitions. One was a bolt-on acquisition and one was an acquisition of an entire entity, and both were quite different. So I suppose in terms of some of the challenges we came across, if I start maybe with ways of working, and by that I mean the whole integration of how we actually do things within our own organisation versus the new organisation. One of the businesses that we acquired, every year there was a bonus attached to health and safety, because health and safety was the major KPI in that business. So every year, what people have been used to for the 20 years before our organisation acquired that site was that if we met our health and safety KPI, which is basically no lost time accidents in a 12-month period, we would get our bonus paid at Christmas time. Very simple example. And the site had an exceptional health and safety record because this was ingrained into people's way of working. When we took over that particular business, health and safety was one of 5 KPIs rather than being the only KPI that the bonus was based on. So it wasn't that the previous company had only one KPI, just to be clear, they had a number of them, but the bonus was paid out on health and safety, whereas we paid out the bonus on 5 KPIs. So that had a whole, I suppose, impact on people on the ground, because they very much all of a sudden thought, okay, does the new organisation value health and safety in the same way as the previous organisation? My bonus doesn't get paid in the same manner as it used to be paid in the past. The way we managed it was, we first of all had a town hall meeting on a number of items, this being one. We then explained that each week the HR function, together with the functional department heads, would have what we call toolbox talks. So every Friday basically we would have met with the employees in the various functional teams, and we would have documented their issues in specifically in relation to this example, as well as others. Some of the discussions can be very rational, some can obviously be heated, depending on the nature of the area you're talking about. But in particular, in relation to this particular change item, it worked very well, because as you went through the 3-month period of breaking down each of the issues, you got to explain to people exactly what was valued by the organisation in terms of our 5 KPI structure, that health and safety was still very much part of it, and I suppose the whole thing dovetailed together by the tail end of the 3-month process, because people understood exactly where they stood. What we did from a broader communication point of view was we used the intranet to communicate, I suppose, learning management system trainings on some of the new systems that people have had to adjust to. We used the intranet for just general communications about, for example, Joe Bloggs has joined the business from X organisation. He is now heading up such and such a function, and he has the following direct reports. Believe it or not, in acquisitions what can happen is there's a level of ambiguity. So people can be unsure about their role within the organisation. So there's a role ambiguity, and there's maybe a hierarchical ambiguity about where I sit. So again, we spent a lot of time in our communication forums, be it toolbox talks or directly through the functional heads, where HR supported the functional heads in their own departmental meetings during the first, I suppose, 3 months plus, explaining to people who's been recruited, where they sit in the organisation, as well as going through each role job description for everybody. If there was no alterations to the job role, they were fairly quick meetings, but if there was role alterations, obviously we had to spend a bit of time, not alone explaining it to people, but also putting some people through retraining to get them to adjust or what's expected of them versus the new way of doing things as well. From an email point of view, a simple example, people had been maybe used to using Outlook, and the organisation worked with Lotus Notes, which are both in a lot of ways very similar email platforms, but again, in terms of systems that are linked to them, the previous organisation would have had bespoke systems linked to Outlook, whereas our bespoke systems are linked to Lotus Notes. So again, how we overcome that goes back to simple area of communication again, but we'd spend an awful lot of time working with the ICT function in terms of a strategic plan, rolling that out through say regular communications, very much using the internet now on this one, explaining to people when the various bespoke systems they had been used to would start to taper off, to eventually having a cliff date, as we called it, to when the follow-up date in terms of the new bespoke systems would kick into place. And of course that all worked is 70 to 80% well. Like anything, there was a number of gremlins and you had to have your support team prepared for that, and we did. So you had in the support team, again, you would have had a designated SME from the ICT function, you'd have had a designated SME, subject matter expert, from the actual function itself. So for instance, if it was supply chain, they had to have a designated person who was strong in systems, and again you had the administrative people, be it HR or otherwise, that supported that as well. And that worked very well, because as the systems came up live and the old legacy systems fell away, we didn't really have as many issues as we maybe anticipated, which I think is a credit to the teams that were put in place at the time. A practical example of where, from a HR payroll point of view, we encountered some challenges in terms of the acquisitions we took place was around people obviously are very anxious to know, first of all, how they will be paid. So one of the challenges we had was that in the acquired company, people were paid on a fortnightly basis across the board, and we had two systems of payments, which was either weekly or monthly. So again, you had to communicate the rationale to people about the change from being previously fortnightly to weekly and monthly. And what comes with that is people have maybe mortgage obligations, or they've other bills, etc., that they now need to get themselves in order with. So the way we managed that was we had a 6-month period where we transitioned from the fortnightly system, didn't go overnight, to either a monthly or a weekly paid system, and you had the option to transfer to either. The majority of people transferred to a monthly system, which worked nicely with the current organisation, as I'd call it. The last piece really where we have looked at impacting the culture of the organisation was particularly around impacting, I suppose, behavioural changes. We had a robust training programme in place. Every one of the functions, so be it operations, quality, sales and engineering, each one of those functions would have had a particular training programme around competencies that were deemed by our organisation as being the key competencies that they wanted to see their employees display, be it in terms of sales guys interacting with the customer, or be it a quality assurance person in terms of their interaction with the operations team on managing the dispatch of product, or whatever the case may be. But that was not just a one-off programme. That's an ongoing programme for all employees within the organisation, but there was a specific programme and timeline put around training the newly integrated employees so that they fully understood what the key competencies were in the current organisation. You also have to be very careful in terms of your interaction and communication with your customers. So we spent a lot of time with our sales and marketing functions and commercial functions explaining to our customers of either the legacy organisation or current organisation that there may be certain periods where we'll go through items of change. So if there is any, let's say, issues from a customer relationship point of view, we set up a number of, I suppose, everything from customer hotlines and our customer care team that the customer could contact directly, to having maybe more frequent meetings between our sales guys, now not necessarily HR but our sales people, with the customer on a more regular basis until the acquisition we felt was fully embedded.